Welcome back, coin collectors and history lovers. Today, we're counting down the top 4 coins that every collector, investor, or curious mind should know about. These are not just pieces of money. They are tiny time machines that carry history, mystery, and sometimes surprising value in the palm of your hand. From everyday pocket change to hidden treasures worth far more than their face value, these 4 coins stand out because of their stories, designs, rarity, and collector demand. Some of them look ordinary, but may be worth extraordinary amounts. Others are famous for mistakes, history, or simply because they are harder to find than you think. In this video, we'll break down what makes each coin special, how to identify them, and what they could be worth today. So before you spend your change, take a closer look. You might already have one of these priceless coins. Let the countdown begin. Next up, the 1-cent Lincoln penny dated 1964, with no mint mark, featuring the powerful words, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty," is far more than an everyday coin, because inside this small copper piece lives the history of an entire generation, a nation in transformation, and a currency system standing at the crossroads between traditional metal money and the modern world. And although this coin may still appear in old jars, containers, or inherited collections, it represents one of the most meaningful years in 20th century America, as 1964 itself followed the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and took place during the Civil Rights Movement, the Cold War, and the space race, making every single penny from this era a silent witness to the struggles, progress, and dreams of millions of Americans. The fact that this penny carries no mint mark tells us it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which during 1964 produced an enormous number of cents to satisfy the growing demand of a population increasing in size and activity, as more people than ever before were spending, saving, and circulating coins in daily commerce, and with silver coins being hoarded at the time because of rising metal values. Even copper cents experienced a surge in use and production, leading to over 2 billion 1964 pennies being struck, an incredible number that explains both their commonness and their historical importance. The design on the obverse, or front, side shows the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln created by Victor David Brenner, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, making this penny the first regularly circulating United States coin to feature a real person, and above Lincoln's head is the national motto, "In God We Trust," a statement added permanently to U.S. coinage by the early 20th century, symbolic of the nation's values and identity, while the word "liberty" appears to the left of Lincoln and the date 1964 sits on the right, marking the year that this particular coin entered circulation in an America struggling to balance tradition and progress. On the reverse side appears the Lincoln Memorial design that began in 1959, and if you look very closely, you can view the statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, making this one of the rare examples in coin design where the same historical figure appears on both sides of the same coin, a quiet artistic detail that most people never notice, yet collectors admire deeply. Composition-wise, the 1964 penny is made from 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, which makes it heavier, richer in color, and more valuable in terms of metal than modern pennies, which are now mostly zinc. And because copper prices rise over time, some collectors and metal investors appreciate 1964 pennies not only as historical objects, but also as tangible stores of material value. The physical feel of this coin tells a story as well, because it weighs more than modern cents and has a distinct ring when dropped, reminding us that money once carried natural weight tied to real metal instead of lightweight alloys. And this means the penny of 1964 belonged to an era when people trusted their coins as much by touch as by value printed on the side. When this coin was new, a single cent could buy matches, candy, gum, or newspapers, and children often carried coins like this in their pockets, exchanging them after school, saving them in jars, or using them at corner stores for small treats, making the penny a symbol not only of economy, but of childhood memory and daily life. Over time, these pennies became part of family traditions, passed down unknowingly in boxes or drawers, until decades later someone discovers them and wonders about their worth, their story, and their purpose. From a collector's standpoint, Most circulated 1964 pennies are worth face value unless they are in exceptional condition, but uncirculated examples, particularly those with bright original red color, can be worth several dollars, especially if graded professionally at MS 66 or higher, with even greater value placed on flawless coins that show no signs of wear, spotting, or fading. And beyond that, era coins create special excitement among collectors, because mistakes such as double dies, off-center strikes, clipped edges, and weak impressions can turn an ordinary penny into a rare treasure, sometimes worth tens or hundreds of dollars depending on the severity and rarity of the error. However, one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make is cleaning their coins, and cleaning a 1964 penny removes original surfaces, damages metal, and reduces collector value drastically. So true collectors prefer natural aging and toning rather than artificial shine, and this is a lesson that transforms casual collectors into serious numismatists. Emotionally, this coin stands as a memory keeper of mid-century America, as it traveled through diners, gas stations, movie theaters, buses, churches, schools, and homes, buying small things and building everyday history. And from economic hardship to cultural revolution, this coin moved silently from hand to hand, witnessing real history, not as an observer, but as a participant in daily life. Culturally, the penny of 1964 also tells the story of how Americans connected emotionally to physical money. Unlike today where transactions happen digitally, this coin had presence, sound, weight, and identity, and people recognized money by feel and appearance rather than screens and apps, and because of that, money felt more real, more personal. The Lincoln penny itself represents American unity, because Abraham Lincoln symbolizes freedom, law, and national healing, and in 1964, his image stood proudly during one of the most intense periods of racial and political struggle in America, reminding citizens of equality and justice, even when the nation struggled to live up to those ideals. Long after 1964 passed, this penny remained, surviving inflation, redesigns, copper shortages, and economic transformation, remaining legally valued at 1 cent yet emotionally worth much more. Today, collectors hold it not because it is rare, but because it is real, because it survived, and because it connects generations. When you hold a 1964 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, you are holding a time capsule, a fragment of a decade that reshaped music, politics, and culture. And if you listen closely in imagination, you can hear the echo of the era inside it. This coin remains a quiet witness to change, a lesson in endurance, and a small reminder that the simplest objects often carry the deepest stories. And whether your interest is history, collecting, or simply curiosity, this penny deserves respect, because while it cost only 1 cent, its story is worth far more. Next up, the 1 cent Lincoln penny dated 1988 with no mint mark, bearing the respected inscriptions, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," is a powerful example of how even the smallest and most common coin can reflect the history, values, and changing realities of the United States. Because although this coin might still be found in circulation today, it was born during a critical decade when America was transitioning from the industrial world into the digital age, and the absence of a mint mark confirms that this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which in 1988 was still producing hundreds of millions of pennies each year to meet demand across the country, making this one of the most widely used coins in everyday commerce at the time, while quietly representing American life near the end of the 20th century. The obverse features Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, whose portrait has appeared on the cent since 1909 and remains one of the most recognized images in all of American coinage. And above Lincoln's head is the national motto, "In God We Trust," which speaks to the cultural and spiritual identity of the nation, while the word "liberty" is struck to the left and the date, 1988, appears clearly to the right, and beneath Lincoln's shoulder rest the small letters VDB, honoring the designer and reminding collectors that craftsmanship lives even in the most ordinary objects. On the reverse side is the Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, showing the famous building in Washington, D.C. And if examined closely, the tiny sitting statue of Lincoln can be seen within the memorial's columns, making it one of the rare coin designs where the same individual is shown on both sides, a detail many collectors treasure once they notice it. The year 1988 itself sits at the crossroads of old and new, when cassette tapes, vinyl records, and VHS movies were giving way to compact discs and emerging computer technology, when arcades still competed with early home gaming systems, and when prepaid calling cards were beginning to replace payphones. And throughout all of this daily transformation, the penny remained the simplest and most familiar form of money, passed between hands for candy, newspapers, parking meters, and small everyday purchases, making the 1988 penny a witness to a society in transition. From a composition standpoint, the 1988 penny represents the modern zinc era, as beginning in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the cent from solid copper to copper-plated zinc to reduce production costs, meaning the 1988 penny consists of a thin coating of copper over a zinc core, making it lighter and less durable than earlier copper cents. And this shift itself tells a story of economic change, inflation pressure, and the declining purchasing power of the cent, which had once been made from valuable copper, but by 1988 was already costing nearly as much to produce as it was worth. Most 1988 no-mint mark pennies are worth face value in circulated condition because millions were produced, but value increases with condition, and uncirculated pieces with bright original color, no wear, and sharp details can sell for $1 to $2, with certified examples graded MS 67 or higher commanding much more among collectors. And while errors are uncommon, they do exist and include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, double dies, and weak impressions, and when discovered, such mistakes can raise the value significantly and turn an everyday penny into a collectible prize. Beyond money and metal, the 1988 penny represents memory itself, because countless people remember collecting pennies as children, saving them in jars, carrying them to stores, or counting them carefully for school lunches. And in those moments, the penny wasn't just a coin, but a lesson in saving, responsibility, and patience. And in a generation before digital wallets and online payments, coins meant something you could feel and hear as they dropped into a purse, cash register, or piggy bank. Historically, this penny exists in an era not yet nostalgic enough to feel ancient, but old enough now to stir powerful memories, especially for those who grew up in the 1980s and 1990s, when the penny might have been earned from small chores, allowance, or coin return trays at arcades. And now, decades later, people rediscover them and suddenly realize that everyday objects from youth have quietly become history. The Lincoln cent is also symbolic of American values, because Abraham Lincoln represents unity, freedom, and honesty, and his presence on the cent reinforces that even the smallest denomination carries the image of integrity. And in 1988, during a period of economic rebuilding and global shifts near the end of the Cold War, this symbol meant stability even when the world felt uncertain. Today, the penny faces an uncertain future as rising production costs threaten its survival. And as discussion continues regarding whether the cent should remain in circulation, coins like the 1988 Lincoln penny serve as reminders of a long tradition that may eventually fade, making each surviving example a piece of historical continuity. Collectors today often keep 1988 pennies not for their price, but for their place in timeline collections, composition sets, or memory collections, especially when assembling runs of Lincoln cents from birth year sets or decade sets. And because of that, the 1988 penny remains relevant even in a modern collecting world driven by rarity and value. Emotionally, this coin represents the final years of simple money, when pocket change still mattered, and when children learned the value of $1 penny at a time. And culturally, it stands as a symbol of everyday American life during a decade of fast change. And finally, when you hold a 1988 penny with no mint mark in your hand, you are holding not only copper-plated zinc, but also echoes of Saturday morning cartoons, school classrooms, phone booths, cassette players, and corner stores, all wrapped inside a single cent, making it a quiet artifact from a not-so-distant past, worthy of attention not because it is rare, but because it is real, and sometimes that is what makes history most powerful. Next up, the 5-cent Jefferson nickel dated 2000 with the P mint mark, featuring the proud inscriptions Liberty. In God We Trust. and E pluribus unum, with the familiar image of Monticello on the reverse, may appear to be an everyday coin from the recent past, but in reality it represents a powerful intersection of American history, cultural change, and long-standing tradition, because the year 2000 itself stood as a once-in-a-lifetime milestone that symbolized the closing of the 20th century and the beginning of a new millennium, a moment when the entire world was watching calendars flip and computers update as families celebrated the future with hope, imagination, and uncertainty. And right in the middle of that historic moment, this small 5-cent coin was quietly minted at the Philadelphia Mint and released into circulation as part of America's daily life, not as a collector's edition, not as a commemorative piece, but as a working-class coin that would move from hand to hand in grocery stores, vending machines, gas stations, arcade halls, and school cafeterias across the nation. By the time the 2000 P. Jefferson nickel entered circulation, the Jefferson design had already been in use since 1938, marking over 6 decades of continuous production with only minor design modifications, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. And this continuity is significant because it creates a bridge between generations. A child spending a nickel in 2000 was using the same basic design their grandparents saw as children decades earlier. On the obverse side, the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States and author of the Declaration of Independence, appears calm and thoughtful, with the word liberty on the left in a flowing script style. In God We Trust, carefully engraved toward the right, and the date 2000 visible beneath Jefferson's chin alongside the P Mint mark, indicating production at the Philadelphia Mint, which by that year proudly placed mint marks on all circulating coinage, symbolizing transparency, pride, and accountability in American minting. Beneath Jefferson's neckline are the small initials FS, honoring Felix Schlag, the artist whose design had defined American nickels for generations. When the coin is flipped over, the viewer sees Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, which stands not just as a building but as a symbol of American independence, architectural brilliance, and intellectual ambition. And above Monticello are the words E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, reminding every citizen that unity gives strength, while below the structure appear Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America, stamped with purpose and precision. In terms of composition, the 2000 nickel is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it a silvery appearance despite containing no precious metal, and it weighs 5 grams and measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter with a smooth edge, which makes it durable and easy to handle during millions of transactions. Millions of these coins were struck in Philadelphia in the year 2000, which makes them common in circulation even today. But collecting is not always about rarity alone, and many collectors seek coins for symbolic reasons, such as milestone years, birth years, millennium era sets, or complete collections of Jefferson nickels by date and mint mark, making the 2000 PA key piece for modern collectors building timeline sets or personal collections tied to meaningful dates. The value of this coin in circulated condition is generally equal to face value, 5 cents, but uncirculated examples, especially those with bright luster and minimal handling marks, can be worth significantly more, especially when graded professionally. And collectors also look for the condition of the steps on Monticello, known as full steps, which can greatly increase the desirability and price of a coin if all steps are visible and sharply struck. Era coins from this year, though uncommon, can include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, double dies, and misaligned impressions, and when such mistakes are found, they can transform an ordinary coin into a valuable and fascinating collectible. The historical importance of the 2000 Jefferson nickel goes far beyond its metal and mintage, as it represents the final years before the design was dramatically altered during the Westward Journey series starting in 2004, which introduced new portraits and historic scenes from Jefferson's life, making the 2000 P one of the final standard designs before a bold shift in American coin art. Culturally, this coin lived at a time when the world was moving into digital technology more rapidly than ever before, with the rise of the internet, email replacing letters, mobile phones becoming personal essentials, and computer screens slowly replacing paper and coin as the center of financial life. And despite this technological shift, the Jefferson nickel remained part of everyday transactions, anchoring the nation to physical currency even as information began moving invisibly through wires. Emotionally, this coin holds special meaning for people who were young in the year 2000, because they associate it with childhood trips to stores, arcade games, candy purchases, school lunch lines, and everyday life before everything became digital. And decades later, when someone finds a 2000 nickel in a jacket pocket or coin jar, it can bring back memories of a different world, a world of pagers, CD players, handwritten notes, and face-to-face conversation. Economically, this coin also reflects the pressure placed on modern coinage as production costs approach or exceed face value, and the nickel itself has often cost more to produce than 5 cents, making it both a monetary tool and an economic paradox. And yet it remains in circulation because tradition, functionality, and loyalty to physical money still matter. In the future, if the United States ever eliminates the nickel or reduces its role, the 2000 Jefferson nickel will stand as part of a now vanishing form of currency, making preserved examples more fascinating to generations who no longer grow up with physical change. For collectors, the greatest pleasure is not always the price tag, but the story behind the coin, and this nickel tells the story of a world turning the page into a new century with optimism, fear, excitement, and endless possibility. When you hold this coin, you are holding history at the edge of tomorrow, a bridge between old-school metal money and the digital economy yet to come. It reminds us that coins are not just metal, but memory, and that each scratch, shine, and mark carries a record of human activity. And whether you collect for love, learning, or legacy, the 5-cent Jefferson nickel of 2000 with the P mint mark stands as a small but powerful symbol of continuity, endurance, and American identity in a changing world, proving once again that even the tiniest coin can tell the biggest stories. Fist up the 5-cent Jefferson nickel dated 2001 with the P mint mark, displaying Monticello on the reverse and bearing the phrases Liberty, In God We Trust, and E Pluribus Unum, is a modern American coin that quietly carries the emotional weight of one of the most unforgettable years in history, because 2001 was not just another date stamped into metal. It was a year that reshaped the world, and while news broadcasts and headlines defined that time in dramatic fashion, small objects like this nickel moved silently through daily life, passing through pockets, stores, and hands without anyone realizing that one day they would symbolize an era of lasting change. The P mint mark indicates production at the Philadelphia Mint, which by this time had become one of the most technologically advanced coin-producing facilities in American history, capable of striking millions of coins with mechanical precision. And yet, despite this automation, every single coin still carried individuality through handling, circulation, and minor variations. The obverse features the familiar left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson designed by Felix Schlag, with Liberty written in a flowing script to the left. In God We Trust proudly engraved to the right, the date 2001 boldly displayed, and the P mint mark subtly resting beneath, while Schlag's initials FS remain quietly engraved beneath Jefferson's shoulder as a signature from the past. When turned over, the reverse reveals Monticello, Jefferson's architectural masterpiece, which stands not only as a home, but as a symbol of enlightenment, innovation, and American intellect, with the words E Pluribus Unum floating above, reminding citizens that unity builds strength, and below rest Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America, completing a design that for more than 60 years had represented the American nickel. Composition-wise, this coin consists of 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighing exactly 5 grams and measuring 21.2 millimeters in diameter. And while it contains no precious metals, its value lies in collected memory rather than material worth. In circulated condition, most 2001 P nickels are worth face value because of large mintages, but uncirculated examples, particularly those preserved with full mint luster and sharp details, can command small premiums, and collectors pay special attention to the steps of Monticello, as coins with sharply struck full steps are significantly more valuable and sought after. Era varieties, though harder to find in the era of advanced minting technology, still exist and include off-center strikes, doubled dies, clip planchets, and strike-through errors, each one adding excitement and individuality to a mass-produced object. Beyond its physical aspects, this nickel opens a doorway into time itself, because 2001 sits on the border between the analog past and the digital future, a year when compact discs, video rental stores, and desktop computers still ruled homes. But smartphones and cloud storage had not yet taken over daily life, and people still carried pocket change regularly, used payphones, and fed parking meters and vending machines with coins just like this one. Economically, the nickel represents a paradox of modern currency, as production costs often exceed face value. Yet the coin remains in circulation due to convenience, tradition, and structure of American commerce, making it a symbol of persistence rather than profit. Emotionally, for some people, this coin is tied to childhood allowance, video arcade machines, school lunches, and neighborhood stores, making it a keeper of memory as much as a unit of money. Historically, the Jefferson nickel of this era stands near the end of a design chapter, as in 2004 the U.S. Mint would begin altering the design with the Westward Journey series, meaning the 2001 P represents one of the last standard Monticello nickels before artistic change reshaped the series, spiritually and ideologically. The presence of "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum" on such a small coin reminds us that values travel as quietly as money does, passing from generation to generation wrapped inside everyday objects, carrying messages of unity, trust, and belief into the future. Collectors often keep 2001 P nickels for birth-year sets, millennium collections, or as transitional pieces between classic and modern coin design, while others treasure them simply because they were part of their daily life at a moment when the world changed forever. And although this nickel will never be considered rare in the strictest sense, its importance lies not in scarcity, but in storytelling, because sometimes the most common objects become the most meaningful with time. When you hold a 2001 Jefferson nickel in your hand, you are holding more than 5 cents. You are holding a fragment of a turning point in human history, a year that reshaped thought, security, and global identity, which now survives inside metal too small to notice, but too meaningful to ignore. And as long as people collect, remember, and wonder, this small nickel will continue to speak, not through sound, but through silent memory, proving that history does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers through pocket change.